Rhett Perling punted 11 times in the game, you said, and I think there were 25 total punts against McKendree. Coach, is that some kind of record? That's unusual, isn't it?
That's the most I've ever seen. It was just one of those days where, things like that happen. I mean, defenses play really hard and force 3 and outs, and you have to have those guys prepared. Have Rhett and Jameson and our long snapper and all the coverage guys ready to go, whether it's 2 punts a game or 11. So it's one of those things.
Hey, I got to say that Jameson O'Connor doesn't get a lot of credit, but from what I've seen, he's been very consistent this year. Talk about him and what his job is.
Well, Jameson's our long snapper. Handles the deep snaps on punts and the short snaps on PATs and field goals. And he's really come along. He handled it for us a year ago, and it's a tough job. One of those jobs that nobody notices until you screw something up. But his snap times have been very good, and that affords us the opportunity to get out and cover a little bit, and it really helps us in protection punt wise, and also on PATs and field goals. But he's done an excellent job, and he's really kind of taken a lot of ownership in that position.
Well, you said something that I think maybe describes your job. It is your job description. No one notices until someone screws up. Is that the life of a special teams coach?
It really is. It really is. I mean, everybody sees the big returns, or the missed tackles, or the botched punts or field goals or whatever it is, and that's part of the business with special teams, and that's okay. We have to be prepared for that, and know how to handle things in those situations when those things happen. And it's just a mental thing for the specialists I'm talking about now, the kickers and the punters and the snappers, that if something happens, they've got to overcome it and wash it and flush it and go to the next one. It's a big mental game for those guys.
We've seen Darmarcus Robinson come on and really contribute, give some electricity to the return game, and you were rewarded with his 98-yard kickoff return last week. Talk about how, if you would, about how a guy like that can impact special teams.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, anytime you have somebody like DeMarcus or Anthony Mullins or Bula Graft back there who can really change the game, in one play like that, and it's a huge momentum swing. But the electricity that those guys provide, like I said, can really turn the tide of a game, in the blink of an eye. However long it takes to return that kickoff for a touchdown or that punt, and having those weapons back there is really vital to what we do special teams wise, and allows us to do a lot of different things.
Matt Trobridge is our guest here at halftime, and on Sundays you see the guys at the bottom part of the roster all fill in on special teams, and that's part of the reason they get their spot on the roster. But in college, lots of times it's their first team guys playing out there. Does that? I think that would make it a little bit easier to put together a coverage unit, say, but. Do you get time to practice with them because they're doing other things?
Yeah, Rick, we do. Coach Weigel's very, accommodating when it comes to allowing special teams practice time. We have, generally 2 10-minute periods per practice, so, upwards of 20 minutes, just solely on special teams. And that allows us, the time to get those starters or those one-line guys who might cover the kickoff or might be on punt, to really focus on that aspect of the game. And speaking with that too, I mean, some of the backup guys who are very capable players, who might not be quite ready to contribute on offense or defense, have done a tremendous job for us, special teams wise. And they take, like Jameson takes a lot of ownership in long snap, and those guys take a lot of ownership in, being a gunner on punt, or working a hold-up technique on a punt return or kickoff return. Things that people don't see that are extremely vital. I mean, we had three huge blocks on that kickoff return that, the untrained eye is not going to pick those up. And, guys cutting off people on the backside that allows DeMarcus to hit that seam, while it's open for that second and a half. And then he's off to the races.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things that was impressive last weekend against McKendree were your gunners, Jimenez in particular, a guy that I know you're really high on in other areas. Boy, he was impressive and got down there and did some really great work. The tackling was good.
Yeah. Alex isn't the biggest guy, and he's done a great job. It's hard. I mean, in college, I was a gunner for 4 years and took a lot of pride in that, and I see a lot of that in him. I mean, he's always talking every day about forcing fumbles and going down there and making plays and doing whatever he can do to help the team. And that's an unsung position where again, one of those things where if you don't get the guy flushed, if you don't get off your block, we're allowing the possibility of a big return. And he and Marvin White on the other side have done a great job. Yeah.
Matt Trobridge is the special teams coordinator at William Jewell College. Sean Weigel, the head coach, in an interview I think last week said something like, you don't have to be from Nebraska to be on this coaching staff, but it helps. He's from Nebraska. You're from David City, Nebraska. How did you come to William Jewell? Tell us a little bit about your career, please.
You bet. I finished up my playing career at Nebraska Wesleyan in Lincoln in 2000, after the 2004 season, and was out of football for 1 year. It's been the only year since, I think, 96 that I've not played or coached football. That was 2005. I got a job as a paraprofessional at Malcolm High School just outside of Lincoln. I coached football there as an assistant, and my wife actually got a job here in town in Kansas City with Cerner Corporation, and we were planning to move, and I was looking for something to do, and happened that one of the guys I worked with at Malcolm knew Fran Schwenk, at the time the head coach at William Jewell, and I got in touch there, and it goes to show who you know a lot of times in this business, and it gets you a foot in the door, and came down and interviewed, and I was fortunate enough to still be here.
What's the thing that people, and you've mentioned I think a couple here, but what's the thing that people really don't understand about special teams?
Oh man, I think a lot of times people they just kind of overlook it. They don't get the field position aspect of everything, and that's the biggest thing that we preach here is the importance of field position, and special teams can set that up in a huge way, or can hurt you immensely in a football game. If we're giving them the football on the 40-yard line after every punt or kickoff, they've got 25 yards to go to get to field goal range. Okay, and if we're pinning them deep, offenses generally screw up the longer you make them drive the football. So that's the biggest thing that I think people overlook. You see kickoff return stats and punt return yardage stats and those kind of things, and those are all great. But at the end of the day, if we're averaging 10 yards per kickoff return and our offense is starting with the ball on the 35 or 40-yard line, that's a really good thing. Okay, because it means they're high pooching the ball to us and trying to avoid those returners, and that's just as good as a 40-yard return in my book.
You see a guy coming up who's really good, let's say our opponent next week, and he's got some good stats, like you mentioned. You game plan for that like an offensive or defensive coordinator would?
Oh, absolutely. You look at everything from the punter's steps to his direction, where that ball typically goes, the flight, and the same thing with the kickoff, with their kicker, hang times, those things. You calculate all that to determine where you want to put your returners. If the team we're playing has a very good return game, we can directionally kick and pooch and do some different things there to try to eliminate or minimize that risk. So game planning is really big, and I think again that's something that people don't realize goes on with special teams, just as it does in offense and defense. Every Sunday and half a Monday, I'm game planning for the upcoming game.
Matt, thank you. This has been great.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Rick. I definitely appreciate the time, and always good to sit down and visit with you.
Matt Trobridge, the special teams coordinator at William Jewell College, our guest, and we're back with more on the HyVee halftime report after this.